Hi. Today I'd like to show you some techniques for addressing your opponent's counterarguments. I'd also like to bring in a key lesson we talked about in unit number one. Unit one, we talked a lot about enthymemes and syllogisms, and I want to bring that back and show you how relevant that is to this particular discussion. It's very useful to be able to identify uh, the major and minor premise of an argument when you're dealing with an opponent. So, let's say we take uh, this here. Let's say this. So, addressing your opponent's argument, it pays to find the hidden premise. To begin with, let's talk about enthymeme and review what an enthymeme and a syllogism is. So, an enthymeme is a claim with a reason. Phil must be married because he has a ring on his left finger. Phil must be married. That's my claim or my conclusion. Because he has a ring on his left finger is the reason or the premise. Now, a syllogism just takes that same thing and breaks it apart and identifies the hidden premise. So, in that argument, there's a hidden premise. That's the major premise here. Anyone who wears a ring on his or her left finger is married. Phil has a ring on his left finger. There's my minor premise. Conclusion: Phil must be married. This major premise is normally hidden in most arguments, and it has to be true. In this case, it is true. Most people who wear rings on their left fingers, yeah, pretty much it's true. That's a sign that somebody's married. It's possible it's something different, but by and large, that is true. So that's a good argument. Now, you want to try to find the weakest link. Is it the major premise, the minor premise? Which of those premises are you going to try to attack? So let's say I take this. The economy is not rigged because anyone who tries hard will certainly get ahead. So think for a minute, what's the claim, what's the reason, and what's the hidden premise? It would be something like this, major premise. In a society where all hardworking people get ahead, the economy is not rigged. The minor premise, in the United States, all hardworking people get ahead. So the conclusion, the economy of the United States is not rigged. So if you're going to attack this, which premise are you going to attack? Pretty clearly, you're going to have to attack the minor premise. The major premise seems true. If all hardworking people get ahead, well, you can't call the economy rigged. Everybody's getting ahead if they work hard, and the only people who don't get ahead are the people who don't work hard. It's not rigged, okay? The minor premise, though, is problematic. All of us can certainly think of one person, at least, who's hardworking and never got ahead. Maybe bad luck happened, maybe a terrible accident or disease or some family tragedy. Whatever it was, there's something that can get in the way. Not every single hardworking person gets ahead. So the way to attack that is with counterexamples. This, by the way, can help you strategize how to create your own argument. Let's say you wanted to argue that the economy is not rigged, okay? Don't make the argument that all hardworking people get ahead. Make something like this. The economy of the United States is not rigged because hardworking people can still get ahead. So all you have to prove now is hardworking people can, in fact, get ahead. You don't have to. One counter argument is not going to knock out your whole argument. One counterexample is not going to kill you. Let's take this one as another example. Try this again. Racism is not a problem because we elected a black president. So break this up into a syllogism. What's the major premise? What's the minor premise? And which one is going to be weakest? So here's your major premise. If an ethnic minority can be elected leader, then racism can't be a problem. The US elected a black leader, therefore racism isn't a problem in the United States. So which premise is the weakest one? Well, clearly you have to attack the major premise. The minor premise is not deniable. The US did elect a black leader. Unless you want to say Barack Obama was mixed, so he doesn't count. But really, come on, he was considered a black president. If an ethnic minority can be elected leader, then racism can't be a problem. It's easy to prove by just giving counterexamples. while he was president, there were this and this and this and that action. You could give examples of racism against our black president. Just because 60% of the people vote for a black president doesn't tell us that the other 40% are not racist, or even some of those 60%. No, the major premise is what you've got to go after. So this is a way to think about how to deal with counter arguments and how to protect yourself against counter arguments. If I wanted to argue that racism isn't a problem, I probably wouldn't make this argument. I might give some other evidence, but I probably wouldn't go with this route because that major premise is so hard to prove. Or at the very least, I would give other evidence in addition to that. Now, let me show you how this plays out in a practical, everyday example. This is a really interesting instance that I want to show you. This is the 2012 Republican presidential primary race. So I'll give you a little background information. Newt Gingrich was running for office for president. So was Ron Paul, Rick Santorum, and Mitt Romney. You might know Mitt Romney eventually won it. There was a big debate just before the South Carolina election. This was an important election for this particular state because Rick Santorum had already won one state, Mitt Romney won another, and Newt Gingrich needed a victory. He needed South Carolina. It was a southern state. He's a southerner. And he had to be viable going into Super Tuesday when hundreds and hundreds of delegates would be awarded. Now, unfortunately, Gingrich had a bit of a wild past for his conservative party. He had had 3 marriages, multiple affairs. According to his first wife, he asked her for a divorce while she was in the hospital with cancer. So he was leading this family values party and was crucifying Bill Clinton for his indiscretions while he was having an affair. So shows you kind of the baggage he was carrying in. Now, just before the election, breaking news. His second wife came out and said, Newt asked me for an open marriage while we were still married. So an open marriage means we're going to stay married, but we're going to sleep with whoever we want. Well, this is dramatic leading into the debate. How would Newt respond to these charges? How would his conservative traditionalist party react? Now, the moderator led off the debate by asking Gingrich about this issue. If you were Newt, how would you respond? How are you going to respond to this attack? And if you're the moderator, you got to be prepared. What is Newt going to say, and how are you going to respond to that? So let's take a look at how Newt argues. I'm going to give you the argument in a nutshell in a minute, and then I want to look at the moderator's response. Newt's response is, you are despicable for opening this debate with that kind of question. Wow. Nobody was expecting him to attack the moderator. This is way before Trump. And at the time, people did not attack the press. They did not attack the moderator for being unfair. But let's look at what his argument is in essence. Let's break it up into a syllogism. Major premise: anyone who scrutinizes a candidate's personal life is despicable. You, the moderator, began the debate by scrutinizing my personal life. Therefore, you are despicable. Worded like this, you can kind of see, how would you respond? Which premise do you think you ought to go after? Let's look at how it actually played out here.
As you know, your ex-wife gave an interview to ABC News and another interview with the Washington Post, and this story has now gone viral on the internet. In it, she says that you came to her in 1999, at a time when you were having an affair. She says you asked her, sir, to enter into an open marriage. Would you like to take some time to respond to that?
No, but I will. I think the destructive, vicious, negative nature of much of the news media makes it harder to govern this country, harder to attract decent people to run for public office, and I am appalled that you would begin a presidential debate on a topic like that.
The moderator's totally shocked.
Every person in here knows personal pain. Every person in here has had someone close to them go through painful things. To take an ex-wife, make it 2 days before the primary, a significant question in a presidential campaign, is as close to despicable as anything I can imagine. My two daughters wrote the head of ABC and made the point that it was wrong, that they should pull it, and I am frankly astounded that CNN would take trash like that and use it to open a presidential debate.
Okay, moderator, how are you going to respond to this?
As you noted, Mr. Speaker, this story did not come from our network. As you also know, it is the subject of conversation on the campaign. I get your point. I take your point.
John, it was repeated by your network. You chose to start the debate with it. Don't try to blame somebody else.
Ouch.
You and your staff chose to start this debate with it.
Slam.
Now, let me be quite clear. The story is false. Every personal friend I had who knew us in that period says the story was false. We offered several of them to ABC to prove it was false. They weren't interested because they would like to attack any Republican. They're attacking the governor. They're attacking me. I'm sure they'll presently get around to Senator Santorum and Congressman Paul. I am tired of the elite media protecting Barack Obama by attacking the public.
You know, your ex-wife gave an interview to ABC News.
Press. Very good. All right. Well, let's see. How did Cooper deal with this? So Cooper defended himself by addressing the minor premise. It wasn't our network who led the scrutiny. We didn't do this, okay? Gingrich crucifies him. Much more effective would have been to address the major premise. Well, Mr. Gingrich, you might not care about someone's personal life, though you were very interested in President Clinton's. But the rest of us do care. Many people still value marriage, loyalty, and family. And we don't want a cheating, lying scumbag for a president. No, Mr. Gingrich, it is not despicable to ask about this. What's despicable is turning your own vice into an opportunity to attack the very professionals charged with helping the American people stay informed. What's despicable is spinning on your vows. What's despicable is refusing to face up to your own seedy past. Ouch. I would have turned it around. Now, why do you think Anderson Cooper did not go that route? Part of it was the shock of a candidate attacking the moderator. He totally wasn't expecting it. You could see that. Gingrich was expecting this fastball right down the pipe, and he hit it hard. Anderson Cooper wasn't expecting that. He was expecting that fastball would go by and he'd get an easy strike. The other point, though, I think, is that the major premise was hidden because Gingrich did not state that hidden premise explicitly. It's really hard to defend against. It's funny. It's like fighting an opponent that's not there. So when you address an opponent's argument, really focus on that hidden premise. One technique to use is called the reductio ad absurdum. That's to take the opponent's major premise, usually the hidden one, and push it to its extreme conclusion. So anyone who scrutinizes a candidate's personal life is despicable. Push that to its conclusion. So I suppose you'd be delighted if the press just hid these things. If a candidate is accused of murder, we shouldn't say anything. A rape accusation, we'll sweep it under the rug. Child molesters love your approach to the media. Hitler would have loved that kind of press. Oh, he could have crucified him so badly. But he didn't. How many of us have been in that situation? In the heat of the moment, we can't think very clearly. But with practice, you can do this. When somebody makes a claim, try this. Somebody says something. I think that place is terrible. This is a great restaurant. This is a great movie. Ask them for a reason. Okay. Now, when you get a reason, try to think of the hidden premise. What is that hidden premise? Okay. And if you wanted to start an argument with that person, try to identify which is the weaker one, the major premise, usually hidden, or the minor premise. Try using the reductio ad absurdum. Now, be prepared for a counterattack, but also play around and have fun. A lot of times with my friends and I, we'll say something and we'll just latch on to it and kind of push it to a comical and extreme conclusion. It could be fun. I do this with my kids all the time. I frustrate the heck out of them, but that's just who I am. Good luck to you, and I wish you the best on this.